The Newton School Committee voted unanimously to hire current Natick Superintendent Dr. Anna Nolin to be the next superintendent of Newton Public Schools. Dr. Nolin has worked in the Natick Public Schools for nearly 20 years and impressed the school committee with her collaborative approach to working with union leadership, welcoming diverse perspectives and viewpoints, and personalizing learning for all students. Dr. Nolin is expected to assume leadership of the Newton Public Schools on July 1st, 2023, conditional on a successful contract negotiation. Here is her entry plan she presented to the school committee.
The Newton Public Schools has many strengths that exist already, and the job of a new superintendent is to write the next chapter for the story that is the Newton Public Schools. And that's not a solo process. In fact, it's an entry planning process that mandates collaboration and communication with the community and all the constituents and with you as a governance board. As I was saying, an entry plan is a collaborative process, and it has specific goals to gather information and to establish relationships and to unearth what the requirements are for the next phase of the school system. So while I know many things about Newton, it does require a listening tour that happens for those 90-day period. And then I bring those findings to you as the governance board, and we make sense of what we have heard together. And that's why we entry plan. I wanted to give you this list that I will not present in detail of how you will know I have been successful at the end of that entry plan. There are deliverables that you can expect from me in that 90-day time period that I've listed in the blue sidebar, which will include our own norms and operating routines of how you would like to be updated on information that I'm finding, which stakeholders I'm meeting with on a regular basis. I would intend to run what are called thought exchanges, which I will share with you what that is at the end of the presentation. And I think you'll find that type of collaborative community information helpful to your process as a governance board. Also, if we open school in an orderly fashion next fall and you've had a smooth transition, that would be a deliverable I would hope to bring to you while I'm still learning all the things that are the Newton Public Schools. I would expect to meet 90 people in 90 days at a minimum, but also interact with lots of stakeholder groups. And you would expect from the administrative team and me some sort of template for the types of data that you would like to see us tracking on over time within the community. What that requires is for me to be interacting with clergy groups and community groups and governance team, the fire department, the police department, any safety officials, these types of stakeholders, and of course the mayor, so that we can understand how our partnership will begin and what the key issues are from a variety of stakeholders. That would be all before school begins. An entry planning process is also a chance, though, for you to see if your mission and my career mission are in alignment. I share that with you here because we'll be testing that until we co-broker a vision and mission together as a community. We're operating under your previous mission statement, and I'm operating under my core values as a professional. They're listed here for your understanding. In terms of core values, we share many of them. I used my artificial intelligence technology to take your vision and mission and core values and to create a themed piece of art from that. And I took my application materials to let you know what is at the center. If you've seen these before, the words that are larger are repeated more often in the materials, just a symbolic representation of our juxtaposition right now. In terms of core values, I looked to your existing documents to say, what does this community currently value? What is the foundation upon which the next chapter will be written? And I shared my own core values with you of how I've approached our craft, the craft of being an educator and a leader. And that includes, as I hope you've heard in my responses today, high standards and high support, which equals high respect for all parties involved in the school community. That includes staff and students and families. To be a pioneer in our craft and the outcomes, the best methods, the most current technology, and socializing that with our expert teachers so we know how to use those in service to our young people. And that service to young people is about personalized learning for all. That means that every child gets what they need when they need it to choose the future they want. And that means something different for many students, but the process to support our educators so they find that for every student is what professional administrators should be doing. And doing all of that with an ethic of community care and collaboration and trust building, which of course I'll be new and I'll have to build those muscles over time with the community. But that is generally how I operate. You have to trust our schools with your children, and we have to talk to you often and talk to you about how we care for your children. And those are my core values. Entry planning for me has 4 phases. The first is a listening, learning, and building relationships phase. And that's about gathering critical information and coming in as an open and curious thinker, not coming in with presupposed ideas or resting on one viewpoint or another, but trying to seek as many stakeholder opinions as possible about where we currently are. The second phase is then taking documents and data that currently exist and squaring it with what I'm hearing in those listening sessions. I would say to you that those two sections are the first 90 days. Then with the themes that have emerged, I have to check back with all the constituencies that I met with in the summertime and with you and with the staff and the administration in summer retreats to find out, is this really the right, do I have it right? Have I heard? Are the patterns the ones that are resonating for you? And just checking back with the students that we interview, checking back with families and community members. And then as we emerge through the year, we'll need to decide how we would like to undertake strategic planning for the future. And there's many ways to do that. But what is the long range plan for this organization that takes us to the place where Newton wants to be next? So I would assume that by June of that first year that we would be together, we would be deciding how to strategic plan for the longer term. But the most important component of the 90-day listening is to build trust and understanding and to do the work with your professional administrators and teachers while I'm learning and listening. So learning the work and asking the questions and reflecting that back as we think about the long-term goals of the organization. I hope this is a useful timeline to you of 90 days of who I think I would be meeting with and what we would be doing together. I would be attending events and we would be looking at the operating budget and grant funding structures. We would be looking at your achievement data and analyzing that. I would be meeting with you as a governance team, and we would be in retreat deciding our norms for operating and the goals that you have heard are necessary as you've all become elected community officials. I would be meeting with the mayor and her office and understanding the pressures and the opportunities that she saw for the schools and the government team to do together. Of course, a huge priority would be understanding the work of the administrative team and learning our beat. How do we interact with each other? What are the deliverables that this organization expects from its superintendent and desires from its superintendent? And you would hear back from me on initial findings in October, which would guide me with further feedback about our next steps. I shared with you 3 sections of the types of questions that I might ask. Of course, I would want to speak with you and the administrative team about if these are the questions that are resonating, but my gut tells me these are the ones from the questions that I've heard you ask me and that what we typically do in entry planning. Some core values questions specifically for our Newton educator colleagues and what's their experience like, so I can understand that from the Newton Public Schools staffer perspective. And then questions for students about their experience and what they might be needing and desiring. And we had a fabulous time I had a fabulous time with your students today, and your high school students are extremely articulate about their worries and their hopes for the schools in the future. And finally, a set of questions for families and community stakeholders so that we can understand what the family experience of the Newton Public Schools is and what their hopes and dreams are for their young people. But again, building trust is the main component of the 90-day entry plan experience. And I do want to say that building that trust and interacting and doing community stakeholder engagement has changed dramatically in my mind from the pre-pandemic time period until now. It's not enough to survey. It's not enough to offer meetings where people don't attend. It's not enough to hear only the voices that show up at certain meetings and know to do that and are empowered to do so. You have a diverse student body and community, and it will require different types of stakeholder engagement. And it doesn't appear that we're going to be able to do this interactive piece, but if you'd like to stick around at the end, we can practice it together. But I have been involved with a company called Thought Exchange just as an advisor for many years. And I do think that it helps us to understand more viewpoints within our community. So we've used this in a variety of ways in my current role to determine how community partners would discuss with each other ideas in a community, not just the loudest voices or the people who knew to fill out the survey or took the time to come to the meeting, but you can canvass community groups at a much deeper level and have them react to each other's commentary. And then it actually tracks, and this is what I can't show you, it tracks who are your biggest connectors in your stakeholder process. So who put the ideas into this survey that the most people connected to, not the loudest or not the greatest number of votes on something, but people whose ideas compelled others to respond. And in doing so, the analytics of this tool themes your major needs and discussions, and also says where your major disagreements might lie in your community. Those are the places we might hold community conversations to probe deeper, go to neighborhoods, and then it just focuses our engagement efforts differently. This is just one type of engagement strategy I would suggest that we participate in, and those questions can be designed collaboratively by many teams. In addition, we've become expert at different types of virtual meetings and multi-channel streams. We've had great success with community StreamYards, where administrators interact with the public and answer questions in a really personal way, and that those are broadcast on many different channels in many different languages so that lots of stakeholders can participate. So I share those simply because we've had feedback that Zoom meetings are not the end all be all of how we engage with people. And we really try to meet people where they are. So on LinkedIn or Facebook Live or those types of processes that allow us to really get to the people who are attending our schools.